Hello everybody, I thought I'd show you a couple of things about art that you probably already know, but I thought I'd give them a mention anyway. When art, as you know, it's changing all the time, abstract and all sorts of stuff now, isn't there? People throw things at canvas and they explain to you that it's the mood of it and all that, and it'll probably move on to something else as well. Whether we like it or not, that doesn't really matter as long as it keeps evolving. But taking it back to its original form, it used to be in lines like that, and that was it. And so if you wanted to see a larger picture, you used more a canvas going that way, or you used a cave perhaps. The first cave drawings were all in a line like that, so on and so forth. But things, as I've just mentioned, keep changing, and the next clip shows you some change. The other day I had to make a hospital trip, and as you know, we are all under strict rules as to what we can and can't do. So I took my wife to hospital and I had to leave her there. The car parks were full because there's not many backlog of people waiting to see a doctor or whatever. So I found a parking spot and in a lay-by, and I had to wait there a couple of hours, and I saw these two trees. Now in between these two trees there was a set of traffic lights, and I didn't want to draw them, so I didn't. And that's the basis of any drawing or painting that you want to do. You put into it or leave out of it what you want as the artist. So I left the red, green and amber lights out. Now the first tree was the nearest to where I was going to and the second tree was a little bit further behind it. And the thing to do is the first tree, because it's close to it, will accept a lot of detail. The further that you go back, you have less detail. But as it happens, this second tree was slightly different in the way the leaves, not the leaves, because the leaves are not on yet, the branches and twigs are growing. These were actually longer off the stem than these, but I had a bit of artistic license and I thought I'd make them similar. Now later on, when I'd done the two trees, I thought, well, you know, two trees, anybody can draw two trees, they don't look anything anyway, so why don't I add a little bit of background. Now if you add in background, in this case a field of view, you need to make whatever it is in the background smaller, smaller and smaller to make it look further and further away. But these trees are on some kind of a little hill, and the hills need to be made smaller as well, and that's how you get the appearance of it looking as though it's going into the picture rather than it going along the canvas or the cave. So that works quite well if you can understand that. It's only basic stuff really, but you know, you can say it, and if it's being said and you didn't quite understand how it works, perhaps you'll understand better now, and hopefully that's been helpful. Now once again I used H to sketch out. I started with H on that one, and then I went on to about a B2 or a B3. Now I haven't put any kind of shadows in yet, because if I went from that corner there, the shadows will be coming across here. This would be darker colour, that would be darker colour, and all these lines would be darker as well. But if you're going into shadow, you might want to consider that the shadow itself will be darker where whatever it is you've drawn, in this case pretend trees, it will be darker there than it would be there, and it would probably be darker there than it would be there, depending on if you're going downhill. This is going downhill, so actually that could be darker there than there. So you have to remember where the shadows are, and to do that, just have a look at something in shadow, and it will give you a good idea of how deep your shadows should be, how thick they should be, and so on and so forth. There might be a situation where there's no shadows at all. Now once again I've tried with H. I've gone over it and over it and over it, and I've also this time I've used a piece of I can't remember what its name is called, but it's like a paper mache type thing that you can sharpen the end of, and you just rub it in there like that, and it makes it blend. I suppose they're called blenders, but it makes it blend, and you can fetch the blend out here as well, so that it merges better and it looks better. But I haven't used it this time, but you know, you can do it, and it looks much better sometimes if you use the blenders to merge it all together. So once again, a made up picture really, well, part and part really. These are trees which I did see, those two trees, but the rest of it is all made up just to illustrate how we look at things going into the picture. I could have gone a lot further back. I could have created mountains here and things like that. And in fact I could have gone right up there if I wanted, and then put the sun in or moon in or whatever, change the picture round and round and keep changing it until I was happy with that particular thing. So you don't have to stick to what is in front of you. You can change it as you wish, just by drawing the odd line, because all drawings, if you can understand, are made up of lines. I'll tell you what, I'll go into that in a moment. Well, every picture starts with a line somewhere, doesn't it? And it may seem a bit silly to say this, but here we have the start of a picture, and you can see 3 lines, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever until you start putting more lines in and making it into something else. Portraits, as an example, would have lots of lines in it. For older people there'd be more lines, younger people and children there'd be less lines. But in portrait cases you would have strict rules to start the drawing off, where to place the eyes, the nose, the mouth, etc. And then if was the portrait looking down, or was the subject looking across or up, and these would change where the lines were going to be. But all drawings and paintings are made up of little bits of lines, and if you can get that in your mind at some point, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, because you can change any line that you wish on your drawing or painting at any time. And there is another thing that I use, something I've not mentioned so far, is a putty rubber. Now, a putty rubber is like an ordinary rubber but softer, and you can mess about with it and use it and use it and use it. It gets darker and darker as you use it, but I've used one for months on end, and I think they're only about £1.20 for a couple. At various art places sell them, and you can get them on internet as well. So they're fairly cheap as putty rubbers. The thing about putty rubber is, when you're rubbing away at whatever the canvas might be, in this case paper, it doesn't harm the paper very much. It doesn't take a layer off the top of the paper if you're careful. Whereas an hard rubber would probably take a layer off the paper and eventually make a hole in the paper, and that's the last thing you want to do. So my recommendation, as well as your H pens and your B pens and paper that you can get in various qualities, and you don't need very good quality to start drawing. To start up, you can use any quality you want. Children's paper I've used in the past. Went on holiday sometimes and it's raining and we're in a caravan and I've nothing to do, I will doodle on children's art paper all day long, and sometimes I've produced some excellent drawings too. So you don't need much to start off with. A couple of pencils will suffice. Now I have another tip, and I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but if you're using B, as in black pencils, the higher the B goes up, the softer probably the pencil will become, and it's harder, more difficult to get that pencil to a sharp point. Now, you don't want to be sharpening that sharp point forever and a day, because you're going to use your pencil up at no time at all, and it's going to be not long before you're going to have to buy another one. So to get round that one, what I tend to do is I either, depending on the blackness of the pencil and the thickness of it, I either use a blade to sharpen it, and then after that I use a fine sandpaper to get a point. And as I said in the last video, every time I use a pencil, to try and keep the sharp edge as long as I can, I keep turning it as I'm using it. Anyway, I've taken these away. Just illustrates that there's more lines there really, and but the thing is, if you're just starting out with painting and drawing, is not to be overwhelmed by the end product. Just think about these things as being lines. I measured that up, I measured that up, and so on and so forth. I measured that, and I measured that. I measured the distance between those two, and the rest I just made up. Now these is all made up as well, because there was a little bit of a mound there, but not as upright as that one, more like that really. And it was a place where people took their dogs for a walk. A nice field it was, but I didn't want to do the field, I just wanted to illustrate this backdrop to show you that how depth of field can be achieved. Well, I'm going to leave it there now for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.